into this. So here's basically the thing. We know that a lot of people either love or they hate DOGE. They either love or they hate Elon. They either love or they hate President Trump. And as a result, he has asked the Supreme Court of the United States to step in and figure out whether or not Elon, via the DOGE, can access a lot of your private data inside the Social Security Administration. But first, before we get into this, please go ahead and put your hands together for Leanne. She is the longest standing member of this channel, going back to when people lived in caves and there was only 100 subscribers. Leanne was with us in the very beginning. There was literally, I think the sun rotated around the earth and then there was another sun. We were in a different cosmos. It was before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was a big, big thing. All right, now with that said, please put your hands together because she did a $10 donation. That is absolutely, absolutely amazing. And we super, super appreciate it. So with that said, DOGE is essentially an organization looking for fraud, looking for similar fault, looking for inefficiency. There was an article written by Jordan Rubin basically about whether or not the Supreme Court is leaning one particular way or the other, what they're asking for documents related to this. Now, here's basically the deal. I'm just going to read straight to so you know what it is. Like other departments of government efficiency activities, this whole situation from Elon Musk's stated goal of rooting out fraud and promoting efficiency. But when it comes to DOGE's legal right to sensitive Social Security data, a federal judge seemed to share your question. Question was, why would Musk even ask to look into information regarding Social Security? What gives him any legal right to that information? The bottom line with this whole thing is, it's a good question, it has a simple answer, but the U.S. District Judge Ellen Hollander wrote in a lengthy ruling last month that the government couldn't explain why DOGE needs access to Americans' personal information to accomplish its mission. This, quote, intrusion into the personal affairs of millions of Americans, absent an adequate explanation for the need to do so, is not in the public interest. Remember, that's the legal standard. Was it within the public interest? Was there a specific and detailed reason given as to why they need access to all of these documents? These are kind of your classic legal standards. Hollander said, the problem wasn't what DOGE wants to do, but how it wants to do it, namely with Americans' private information entrusted to the Social Security Administration. Quote, for some 90 years, SSA has been guided by the foundational principles of an expectation of privacy with respect to its records, even though much of them have been stolen and put on the dark web. December 2023, very sad. This case exposes a wide fissure in the foundation, she wrote in granting a preliminary injunction to plaintiffs who brought a lawsuit against the government. So in other words, people said, I don't want them accessing my private information. They sued DOGE. This lower level district judge said, we agree, they shouldn't be able to access your private information. We don't like it, and they are not going to be allowed. Right? And they reached out and said to the commissioner at that time, Commissioner Leland Dudek, hey, you have to cut off their access so that that DOGE, cannot go ahead and utilize the information for people. All right. The Obama-appointed judge said that the SSA could still give DOGE access to redacted or anonymous, and you're not going to know that word, but records, so long as anyone accessing that data is appropriately trained and vetted. Okay. And remember, this is all during the time when they called them the Doge kids, although quite a few of them aren't that young. The U.S. Court of Appeals. So now we're going from district court to the circuit court. Okay. So circuit court. Where the Fourth Circuit Court declined to halt Hollander's injunction. Okay. So basically, the Fourth Circuit said, we don't need to touch it. We're not going to change it. It holds. And the Trump administration brought an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court last week. The government has frequently filed such appeals in Donald Trump's second term as judges find legal issues with various aspects of his agenda. Trump's Solicitor General John Sauer cast the reason for the barrage of urgent appeals differently. Quote, this emergency application presents a now familiar theme. A district court has issued sweeping injunctive relief without legal authority to do so in ways that inflict ongoing irreparable harm on urgent federal priorities and stymie the executive branch's functions, he wrote. When it comes to this Social Security case specifically, Sauer said the government, quote, cannot eliminate waste and fraud if district courts bar the very agency personnel with expertise and the designated mission of curtailing such waste and fraud from performing their jobs. Chief Justice John Roberts. Okay, now Supreme Court, up, right? District, Circuit, Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts, who handles emergency litigation from the Fourth Circuit, asked for a written response from the plaintiffs by Monday afternoon. The government can then file a final reply brief, after which we can hear from the court anytime about whether it will be upheld for Hollander's injunction. So in other words, what's happening is the judge is asking for both parties to send them their side of it, give them a detailed list, what their arguments are, etc. Now, I do find it very interesting that our government is not able to audit our government. Now, some of you will say a bunch of emotional BS and a bunch of it's too much, it's too much, it's too much. But to some degree, I do find it very interesting where essentially, right, the government is often restricted from auditing the government. If this were not Trump or Elon, I feel very strongly that, in my opinion, that nobody would have questioned this. In fact, we would have heralded it as an excellent example of us as users and them as stewards of all of our money that we paid in over our lifetime, that they need to audit the system to make sure that there's no leaks in the boat. I think one of the big things that upsets me about how our government operates is that the expectations they have on us, file your taxes on time, do the accounting properly, live a perfect life within our rules and regulations. And yet the government doesn't follow that. So when people are like, nobody's above the law, actually the government is. Because the government creates the law and then argues as to when it should have to follow the law. And the reason why I have a big issue with this is that at the end of the day, to be really fair about this situation, really fair about it, just to be real straightforward, let's say that they spent $100 million and they only find $100,000 worth of fraud. Now, we know that that's not going to be, we know it's going to be way more than that, but just with me with the hypothetical. We spend $100 million and they find only $100,000 worth of fraud. Most people would say that was a waste. How dare they? Back into your cage, DOGE. Back into your cage, Elon, right? I don't think people get it. It's not about how much fraud you found. It's about auditing it so that we know the books are good. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for them to find all the fraud. That's the sugar on top. That's the, wow, look at that. That's the blink, blink, blink light. You're paying them to audit that shit and get it green on the books. If they got to paper something over, they paper it over. If they got to fix it for next, they fix it for next time. So many people always tell me, I just wish they would figure, I wish they would find, I wish they would, oh my god, blah, 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 blah. I get that having Elon and DOGE in a very heated political situation is not the best way to have done it. I get that. Ain't nothing neutral about that. Lots of potential bias there. No doubt about it. I get that. But what I don't get is how people have a little bit of a tough time. I just saw Kosher's. I just saw his chat where he said, American Pope. And he spelled America, obviously, without the A, which turns it into a Florida term of art in Florida. With that said, I've seen a few from Zimmerman, too, that just made me giggle. So with that said, I hope you understand that, we're not doing this whole thing just to, get fraud. You know what I mean? That's the sugar on top. That's the cherry. That's okay, we're getting an extra scoop of chocolate on top of this pup, right? We're doing it so that we can actually have, and hear this with me, we can actually have and accounting that is balanced. A balanced account sheet. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing this to find fraud. I mean, we want to. It'd be nice, but it's that full accounting. I mean, look at all the stuff we've learned, right? Epstein's list, right? Computers that create money inside the US government, right? Where they keep files for those who are in the government and are retiring, right? Look at all the stuff we're learning. Look at all the shit they hide from us. And then you've got some politicians that will tell you straight to your face there's nothing in the Constitution that says that they have to tell you what they're spending your money on. I don't know about you guys, but like, they should not be spending that much of the money that we paid in on quite a bit of the shit they're spending it on. Look, let me sell you on something, okay? Imagine we start a program where if you get over a certain age, if you paid in a certain amount, you get to have a check every month until you die. It's a good program. I like it. It's called retirement. Imagine if we had a program where you paid into it while you're working, had a bad day, became disabled, shit out of luck. Then, as a result, the government steps in and says, you know what? Because you paid in this money, we're going to give you a check every month. Now, of course, the check is too small. I understand that. I'm not arguing that. But it's a good program. SSDI benefits. Okay? Now, imagine a program where someone is so super duper poor, hasn't paid in much into the system, they become disabled. And then from general taxes, we give them a check every month. And that is called supplemental security income. It is the most welfare-ish part of Social Security benefits. The most welfare-ish. Technically, giving immigrants SSI for 7 years is the most welfare-y part. Okay? I guess what I'm getting at here is that these programs are foundational to the upkeep of Americans, and yet they have not been upkept by the politicians that put their hand on a Bible to say they will defend our butts. They will help us. They will build a better America. So my point to you is, with this situation, okay, some of you absolutely hate the idea that DOGE is getting access to your information, and 99% of it is because of political reasons, that you don't trust Trump, you don't trust Elon. I get it. Nobody wants them as an enemy. Nobody wants them as an enemy, okay? And obviously, if you're a Democrat, and many of the independent friends that I have as an independent, they feel that way too. But if Trump doesn't get in for the next round, a Democrat does. Let's say it's AOC. Let's say it's Martin O'Malley, okay? We expect AOC. We expect Martin O'Malley to keep auditing the system. No more $400,000 hammers. No more. No more $200,000 toilet seats. Okay? I'm sure they're nice. I hope they have spring-loaded seats on them. The point that I'm getting at is, at the end of the day, it is incredibly important. It's crucial to understand that you aren't having this happen just to find fraud. You are having this happen so that we have a full, proper balance sheet. All right. With that said, please remember to go ahead and like and subscribe, right? Get on there. Get that little duck happy. All right. We only have 81 likes. Go, up. A little bit of likes here. Also, please remember to go to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there if you like. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays usually, although this week was all over the place. And also remember, there is a contract below, a private hour contract where you can hire me for an hour. A lot of people do it to ask me a bunch of questions. Also, please remember, if you're going to hire a disability attorney, I'm the most viewed, subscribe to. You don't have to hire me. You don't have to call me. Call 5 attorneys. You don't want to call 5, call 3. Ask them questions. Ask them questions about your impairments. But above all, ask them a question that if you hired them, how much referral fee would they have to pay in order to receive you as a client? Okay, that's crucial, because there's a lot of these referral companies out there now that are making big money off of you getting to the law firm. You really, really need to be aware of that and be careful of that. because they're going to take a giant percentage from the law firm. The law firm's not going to have that money to spend on your claim, and then you're going to get shittier representation. So with that said, I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. Attorney Walter Hnot, and we will go from there. Thank you so much. And I will be doing one more video, and then I have to go ahead and work on some other things. Thank you so much. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.